No Followers podcast, and obviously we can't go a month without a tea rant.
This isn't a rant.
This is going to be a rant. It's one of your missions.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the no instant traction myth.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not making this up. This did come up organically in a conversation I was having with a client partner situation. And this is a very highly educated person, very qualified, very talented. He's a great engineer. And we were talking about how he wants to get into the product side and do less of the consulting side. And so we were talking over products and his product idea and what he's trying to do. And he made the statement of, we just have to get to the point where we fine tune the product until it's an instant traction product, like so many products out there. And I cut him off and I said, I'm going to push back on that because I don't believe that any product is an instant traction product. I might be wrong on the any part. There might be some, maybe just you got really lucky and had a home run, but it is my belief and it is my understanding, it's my experience that there's a bunch of back end and a bunch of work that goes into what we perceive as the instant traction.
Well, I'll go back early in your story. You said a consultant wants to make a product company.
Yeah.
Even though he's never made a product.
Yeah.
But he's consulted product companies, so he thinks he knows what it takes.
Yeah. Well, and he was honest about the fact that because he said a few things, and like my view is if you're a consultant, that's a good business to be in because you get to tell people best path forward and you don't technically have to execute. That's against our ethos. We actually, move the needle and do execute and see things through, especially as an engineering consultant. They can do analysis. They can tell you, do this, this, and this. They have no risk.
So I'm going to just divergently speak about our mission because so we built this taking risk with our incubator members who might become client partners. There's no guarantee in our continuum, but our whole thing is to cut all the BS out and that every product and every company doesn't make money. Unicorns aren't really unicorns anyway, because evaluation doesn't mean you're making that money, right? So, and this is going to tie into no instant traction, I promise.
No, I'm with you 100%.
But one of our biggest filters for here is we have all our own money committed to this. We're pot committed.
Yeah.
We only want client partners that understand that doesn't mean we're going to be successful together.
Yeah.
Like, I am so tired of having those conversations where everybody has to win. Like, we understand there's a risk. And if you're not willing to take part of that risk with us, we don't want you here.
Yeah. And that risk it's a significant risk. And you actually said something to me years ago that prevented me from taking investment from a few different sources, which was the right move because it's the conversation of risk capital. What is true risk capital? And that can be a whole separate conversation we have. But if anyone out there is thinking that they're going to raise money and do this, that conversation of what does risk capital mean to you and to your investors is one you should have early on because it could be the parting line.
Well, those people who they thought they were doing a loan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and even
I'm being kind.
Yeah. And like looking at the profile of what else have you invested in, because things that are asset-backed investments are traditionally safe. So if you have someone that is traditionally a real estate investor and they're investing in a product startup, that's going to be a tough life together because those are two wildly different investments. And to go back to our friend, the engineer, during our conversation, I brought up the difference between consulting and actually making the product. And he even said, like, I'm aware of the fact that I've never had to tackle these things. And it is a large hurdle to go now actually make it, right? You don't have to worry. You can do the math of throughput time and all that kind of stuff and figure out a lean process, but now go set it up for not $4 million. It's a whole other issue. But
also you brought up a good point. People don't see the steps. They think I have an idea, I make the product and we go. Right. And how many times we've talked here and we talk all the time about this is like people don't understand the difference between MVP and prototype and alpha product and then ready for manufacture. no product goes from idea and then it's out the door. It just can't be. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, even like, I think a lot of people think you go design, engineering, make, and there are a lot of steps in between there. And even having worked with very qualified and very good engineers, they'll be the first ones to tell me, okay, this is what we think, go test it. And then you come back to the drawing board, because I'm going to guarantee you a bunch of stuff's going to fail. It's not going to work. You're going to have to figure it out as you go. And all that stuff that the engineers did in their finite element analysis and everything that's really good and helpful in due diligence, it's all based on assumptions. So if the assumptions are bad, or the load conditions or any of those things are bad, your analysis is bad. And so that will come to fruition when you test it. And that is like our whole ethos kind of thing, is test it and see. You think this, get your market validation, see if you're right. And that is the same with design and engineering and everything else. And
that also even goes past after we get to a product that could be viable. Yeah. Then we have to get the user play, which could change your design again, 100%. Because people never use a product as you design it.
Right.
So how do you make it so they can adopt it faster?
Yeah. And that's what we're fighting right now, right? As the inventor, you think these 5 things are important to the user, and then you put it in people's hands and they don't care about 3 of those 5 things. So why are you going to spend all this money trying to make it do 5 things when it's 2 things that the user, or the customer rather, cares about, or that conversation of customer versus user?
And going back to my favorite gloat currently of the incubator candidate that I voted against immediately, and then you carried through for another few months because you thought you could save them. They're building a product in a vacuum.
100%.
They were, from the moment they said their idea, it was in a vacuum. It had no relation to reality.
Right. And trying to align features and benefits in a vacuum is useless.
I didn't give away anybody's name.
No, that was pretty good.
That was pretty good.
I mean, I know who it is.
I know, yeah. Because I'm still gloating.
Yeah. Right. You were right. I don't know what to tell you. But it does get back to the myth of instant traction, right? Even if you've done all these things, right? You've done all this back-end work. The possibility of having instant traction is slim. And I would argue, especially in today's world, when people are inundated on social media, on everything they do, with products that they're being told they need to get, they need to buy, all this stuff.
Well, I would say because now we have the ability to reach everybody in theory much faster than ever before.
Yeah.
But the flip side is there's no moat, right? There's no, I got that one in too.
You're slipping everything in this one.
I'm dropping a lot of back-end jokes here.
Yeah.
There's no hurdle.
Yeah.
So everybody piles in.
Yeah.
It's the same thing about software, right?
Right.
And now AI is making it even easier to build. So, we don't do anything here with that. We do that in our other businesses, but it's the same model. It's always been hard, just for different reasons. But the other thing is, I always say, if you've hit instant traction, then you've won the lottery. And how many people win a lottery? How many of them still have money?
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah, none of them. Yeah.
And just like a company that hits, there's no sustainability.
Well, even
most of the time.
I know someone that he had what we would call a successful startup. He sold the technology to someone. He never really had to fully develop it. He did it very quickly. He was it was a right place at the right time. They had done the legwork, but a lot of things lined up for them. He then took that money, rolled it into a second company, and for the last 10 years has had a rough go of it, because that first one was just, he got super lucky, and it was lightning in a bottle, ba-boom. That is not the common experience, and he's learning that lesson kind of the hard way. But I did pull up some companies that are famous instant traction companies that it seems like to the outside, but in reality we're not. All right, so I think my favorite story of what seems like instant traction to us today, but isn't, I think, is bubble wrap.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
With Tesla.
No, not Tesla.
Such a bunch of junk. Bubble wrap. Okay. So again, there's a bunch on this list that people know. Apple, like you were talking about, Uber, Nintendo. We can cover some of those, but I think the one that's my favorite is bubble wrap. So it was invented in 1960. Invented as a trendy new textured wallpaper. Total failure. Later attempted to market as housing insulation. Also a failure. The thing that changed the tide for bubble wrap was IBM, because IBM came out and needed it to package their newly launched computer. So the reason I love it so much is because it's not just about time, right? I think sometimes you get in this, you hear this thing where people are like, just give it time. It's not just about time. It's about co-occurring conditions, right? You needed sensitive electronic equipment that had to be packaged and shipped to make bubble wrap relevant. It wasn't relevant before that. And that's what made it take off. And, you know, we were talking earlier about the Wright Brothers and flight. You think about, man, I wish I was the person to invent flight. It took the Wright Brothers like 7 or 8 years to prove to anyone that they actually figured out flight control. That was really what they did, was flight control. But when they first flew, even newspapers that witnessed it covered it as a hoax, all this kind of stuff, all this thing. They went to the U.S. government. U.S. government wasn't interested. They went to France, did demonstrations in France, and then the U.S. government saw it. And then that's what really kind of changed the tide for flight.
But all that ties into what we preach all the time about validation, right? Even going back to the bubble wrap IBM, you know, we talk about partnering up or partnerships and collaborations and paid pilots. Those have never changed, right? We always say you're never going to get validation in your hometown. You have to go out of your town to get it and then come back. Yeah. How many iterations something are before, even if it hits market. And you bring up Apple. Apple's done a great job of taking customer feedback and iterating on their product all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Their product wasn't that good when it came out.
Yeah. I think you need some amount of grit to make it.
Grit.
Well, and I know you love that word. You need some amount of resilience, because you are going to get negative feedback. You were just giving me, I mean, I don't know if I'd call it negative feedback, but you were just giving me criticism, but it was truth about certain products we make. You need to be, and that was delicate.
But it was relevant, because if you want to be in a certain space, you have to know where those customers congregate to get them to buy your product.
100%.
Right.
It was relevant, and it was honestly delicate compared to criticism and feedback that you're going to get in the market. But I feel like we see people go through the same thing, which is, I came up with this idea. I told my insert here, wife, husband, partner, mom, dad, whatever. They thought it was great. So now I'm here and I'm ready to make them. There's things you can do before I'm ready to make them to find. And that's what we do in the incubator is, what should you be doing to determine feature benefit match and product market fit match, so that as you spend money on this, you spend money on the right things. And even with all that, there's no such thing as instant traction. You can design, develop, figure out bubble wrap in 1960. It's going to take time before that takes off, but it's not just wait it out. It's, where is the right product market fit? Because it wasn't wallpaper. It wasn't insulation. It was shipping and packaging. You know, and that is the thing that we try to speed up. I'm not going to say accelerate, that we try to speed up for people. That's a different program. That's a different thing. Accelerators are a totally different thing than an incubator, but we try to speed up that thing of, how do I find my product market fit so that I'm investing in the right area, because you don't have unlimited funds, most likely.
There is so much intel going on that I literally have to stop and have a drink. So we're going to pick this up on our next episode. So from No Followers Podcast, this is Bob. That's T. We'll see you soon.